Hey everyone, welcome to Take 5 with Tom. And if you've ever been lost in thought, I think you know what I mean by that. Constantly distracted, things are popping up, conversations that happened a month, 10 months, 10 years ago, stuff that's happening at work, with a coworker or a presentation. It could be anything. You're getting up at 4 a.m., you're tossing and turning. If you've ever experienced that, and I'm sure most of the people that choose to click on this probably have experienced that, then this episode might be interesting to you because I'm going to talk about my personal journey with that problem and some of the things that I've done to try to attenuate that voice in my head and help other people, hopefully, and by sharing this information. So when I look at this, and when you look at this sort of dialogue that happens in your head, it kind of starts when you're a kid, right? I mean, we're all told, oh, Tommy has a very active imagination, right? Because we have conversations with those imaginary friends. Some of us still do. But and it's part of that inner dialogue that's happening, right? Those thoughts that are emerging. And as you get into adolescence and adulthood, that tends not to attenuate for most people. You're constantly plagued by comparison to other people, to wondering whether or not you belong in a certain situation, with imposter syndrome. We all struggle with those things. And anybody says that they don't is probably full of it. I mean, I think there are some people that are better equipped, and some people have the ability to attenuate that dialogue and manage it better. But we all deal with it. I think it's part of the human condition that's undeniable. And for me, I think, in the, when you're young, and when I say young, I mean anything before 40 years old, you feel pretty bulletproof, and you may have that dialogue going on, but I think you have better skills for dealing with it, or at least I did, because I was so preoccupied with what I was doing, just trying to build my career and my family and all these other things that, yes, those things happened. Your dialogue is there. You're comparing yourself to other people. You're dealing with imposter syndrome. You're dealing with any number of things. But to me, it was never that much of a factor. As I got older, I've noticed it. I've noticed its presence a little bit more, and I've wanted to try to understand it. It became really a problem for me, I think, in my 50s, around the time of the pandemic. I had some experience as an entrepreneur, started a number of businesses, sold one, had, more than my share of success and failure. But in 2016, I was hired to turn around a startup for an investment group. And we made a great go of it, built a great team, did a lot of amazing things. But at the end of the day, we didn't, thing failed, and had to let a lot of people go. And it was a really hard and challenging time. I was in a place where I had just come off a startup and now had to figure out what the next 10 or 15 years of my career were going to look like. Had to reinvent myself and get myself back into the workforce after having been a CEO. That's a challenging thing to do, especially at this age. And so that voice was very active. The imposter syndrome, the evaluation of, oh boy, I wish I could have done this better. I wish I could have done that better. I hope everybody's doing well. On my team, they were so great, so many great people. And we did a fantastic job at finding them all homes, but still it was a hard thing to go through. So through that process, I started to do a lot of research. I mean, I've always been interested in the nature of reality and the nature of consciousness and how our minds work and things like that. And, everything from, Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff and their work, and I'll put links in the description for all this for anybody that's interested, and their work on quantum consciousness and the way their theories on how our consciousness connects to the underlying quantum field in the universe. It's fascinating stuff. And things like Terence McKenna and the Psychonauts and all the stuff that they did with DMT and psilocybin, and Paul Stamets and his discussions about microdosing and Fadiman protocol and all that kind of stuff were really interesting, because they really talked about, especially with DMT and psilocybin, their ability to sort of dissolve the ego and lift the veil of that narrative, of that construct that we build to sort of, connect ourselves to our current reality. And, the ability of things like DMT and psilocybin, which are very closely related to serotonin and other neurotransmitters in the brain, their ability to really connect us with the present moment. So I was fascinated by that, and I actually did try microdosing, and I did a lot of research before trying it. I followed the Fadiman protocol, but I've never really been somebody that's wanted to have to rely on things. I don't really like putting things in my body that, unless I really absolutely need to. And psilocybin's no different, but it was really interesting, and it did actually work. I mean, for me, it did. I mean, a lot of the evidence that's out there is really anecdotal. I mean, if you look at the studies, it's hard to really tell if microdosing is working for people because there's so much confirmation bias going into it that you sort of expect it to do something, right? So it's kind of like the placebo effect, right? I mean, your mind is kind of biased in this direction of, oh, this is going to help me. And most people report that it does in some way. It elevates their mood, it reduces their anxiety, and it did those things for me. But again, it's hard to tell if they're anecdotal. And the other thing too is that the jury is just out. I mean, they don't know. You're taking very low doses. I mean, there's never really any problem or been any reported cases of people becoming addicted to psilocybin, so that's not a problem. But there's still, a lot of stuff that's yet to be understood and documented about the long-term effects of taking even low doses of psilocybin. So, proceed with caution is what I'm trying to say here. So I wanted something that was more sustainable, that I could take with me and incorporate into my daily routine, that didn't require that I take something. So as part of that whole research and that's part of that whole journey to try to help help understand how better to manage these things, I ran across Andrew Huberman's podcast. And he has a lot of really interesting guests on, and they talk about everything from, how to be less distracted, how to get better sleep. There's a lot of really good stuff. At least I found a lot of really good stuff in a lot of those talks. One of the guests that he had on was Sam Harris, and they had a very long episode on meditation. And the thing that really struck me about what Harris had said, because I had tried meditation before, never really read books or studied it or anything, but people had suggested that I tried it and gave me some sort of ground rules for it and things like that. And I tried it, but never really stayed with it. It never really took. But the thing that Harris talked about in sort of leading up to, the sort of pre-discussion before they actually got into practice, talk about practice and what it does for you neurologically, was this notion that we all walk around constantly distracted by thoughts. Now, some people have better facilities and capacities for dealing with this, but in general, there's this dialogue that we're all dealing with where these thoughts are kind of randomly occurring in our consciousness, and we like to think we have control over our thoughts, but we really don't. They're just kind of appearing in our field of consciousness like waves on the ocean or something, and they're begging for our attention and dragging us down rabbit holes with their comparison and emotion and all the stuff that they bring with them. And as he described that experience, I immediately connected with it because I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I'm normal. Okay. Everybody deals with this. That was a revelation. It just was. I kind of suspected that people walked around like that, but and he said things like, like the only difference between psychosis and normal is, that normal people know not to move their lips when they're having their inner dialogue. So, we just kind of all deal with it. So he talked about a lot of his practice and stuff and what he was doing with the Waking Up app. And I was really intrigued and said to myself, I got to try this. This sounds amazing. And of course, best of intentions, took quite a few months, and I finally started using it this year. And I will say that it's been amazing. I don't want to say it's been profound, at least not yet, but what it has helped me do is it has helped me recognize when I'm going down that path of being overcome by thought. And it's given me techniques and tactics for bringing myself back to the present experience. And that has been really powerful. It's like this toolkit for your brain. And, you know, and the other great thing about it is like every day there's like almost like a micro podcast that has it's on a topic that's relevant to the session and the practice that he's going to be talking about. And then a guided 11 to 12 minute session where he'll talk you through different techniques. And it's not just sitting there and being quiet the whole time. It's sitting there and understanding that things are going to appear in your field of consciousness, even while you're meditating. Sounds, thoughts, patterns of light and shadow in your visual field. If you have your eyes closed, he does sessions where you meditate the entire time with your eyes open. It's all getting you prepared for the fact that meditation and these techniques that he's giving you are things that you can apply throughout the day, right? If you're in a situation where you find yourself getting distracted or you just can't focus, you can use these techniques in the moment to kind of bring yourself back. So that's really the power in it. Now, it's not a silver bullet. It hasn't solved every problem that I'm looking for it to solve. It's just another tool, right? And that's the way you have to look at it, because there is no silver bullet. I mean, people come to YouTube, they look for something that's gonna, just gonna be the keystone, the thing that's gonna lock it all together for them. It's gonna make their life complete and solve every problem. It just doesn't work that way. I mean, life is about struggle and hard work and having regimens and routines that you do that kind of keep you focused and keep you in the present moment. And this is just another one of them. And I think it's a great tool so far. So I encourage you to check it out. Like I said, there's a bunch of links in the description. This has been really helpful for me. It's really, I think it's given me a practice that I feel like I can rely on. I've been pretty consistent with it. I'm 22 sessions in and really feeling the benefits of it. But you have to really stick with it in order for it to stick. So I hope you found this useful. If you did, please like and subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you on another Take 5 with Tom.